Well, we were invited down to rehearsal for the Greater National Chorus of Sweet Adelines International. Today we're going to meet some of their members and hear the stories of their ink. And at the end, hopefully, they'll sing a song or two that they've been rehearsing for everybody to enjoy. I've always wanted to do that. Let's go meet the ladies.
I had wanted a tattoo probably starting when I was a teenager, around 15 or 16. And my mom obviously was not thrilled, but she did say to me, whatever you decide to get, make sure it's something you really, really know you want on your body for the rest of your life. And so I said, that makes sense. And it actually kept me from getting one for about 24 years. And even when I got it, I didn't get it because I thought, oh, that's it, that's definitely what I want, I'm going to get that. I got it because my mother called me up. And she had moved to Texas. And she said, you know, I have a big birthday coming up, and we're coming up to visit, and we're going to spend some time up there for my birthday. And I was wondering what you thought if for my birthday we got matching tattoos. And I think she was hoping I would say no. Instead I said, okay, sure, no problem. And I had actually already picked out a place. I didn't know any artists, but I knew the place I wanted to go. I knew people who had gone there. It came very highly recommended. And so when she came up, we had, in between, we had tossed around different ideas. And one of the things that my mom and I had always shared was music. She sang to me when I was a little girl. I joined the chorus when I was 17. My mom had already been in for a year, and I got to sing with my mom for 7 years here in the chorus until she moved to Texas. And when I was a little girl, she used to sing "You Are My Sunshine" to me. And then unfortunately, it wasn't until after she left that the chorus sang "You Are My Sunshine." So it was something that connected us and something that we shared. And so when she said, you know, we should get tattoos, she actually brought it up and said, what do you think about a sun? And I said, that is a perfect idea. Because I didn't get to sing with her the song, but so we decided we're going to do this and we're going to share that. And she had all different kinds of drawings, and I had different kinds of designs, and we couldn't agree on anything until we actually got to the tattoo parlor, and we were looking through, and we both went, that one! So I have one on my back, and my mom has the same one on her left ankle.
My first tattoo was my G clef that I have on my upper thigh, and I got it for my 30th birthday. And I knew going into my 30th year that I wanted to get a tattoo. Never told my parents that this is what I wanted to do. My conservative father would never approve, all that stuff. So the day I decided to go get my tattoo, my cousin came with me, who's 10 years younger than me, and she already had her first tattoo, so she wanted to come with me. And so I told my mom that I was thinking of getting a tattoo, and she's like, oh, I can't believe that. Well, where are you thinking of getting it? So I said, I'm thinking of getting it on my upper thigh. And she's like, well, what are you thinking of getting? And I'm like, well, I think I might get a G clef. And being a musician herself, she says, I think I can endorse that. So she was totally cool with me getting the tattoo. So when me and my cousin were getting ready to leave, my mom tells me, go tell your father. And I was like really petrified to tell my dad. So I told my dad, and he gave me a lecture about spending money. So, so my cousin and I went to the tattoo place, got my tattoo. And meanwhile, she had been hiding her tattoo, which she had gotten, I think it was a few years old already, but she had hidden it from my grandparents who were in town. And so I went and got my tattoo, and I was going to hide it from my grandparents also. So I got home to the house, and my grandfather was saying to my cousin, show me your tattoo. And she's like, I didn't get a tattoo, Jenny got a tattoo. She's like, show me your tattoo. So we ended up showing both my grandparents our tattoos, and they loved them. So that was my 30th birthday gift to myself. I did want a 40th birthday tattoo and never got around to getting it on my 40th. And so a couple of years later, my birthday was on a Sunday night, and me and my boyfriend at the time, he and I were, he's my fiance now, but my boyfriend and I were hanging out at my birthday, and it was a Sunday night, and we were saying, you know, I've always wanted to get a smiley face tattoo. So he called around to see if there was a place open on Sunday night, and right around the block this place was open. So we went over there, and I told the guy I wanted a smiley face tattoo. He was so excited to do it, and he did a great job. He really just, you know, he took such passion in it, and it came out so awesome. And I love the smiley face. Just, it makes you smile. It's so happy. So yeah, it's happy face. So my mom, my sister, and I always take a girls' night into the city every year. My parents have a timeshare in New York City, and so we take a night over every year around May, around Mother's Day, and the three of us go into the city. And so for years in my head, I kept on saying, like, we should go in the city together and get a tattoo. Now, never in 100 billion trillion years would I think they would ever go for it. So I kind of started planting the seed and joking about it. And I was like, you know, last year we talked about getting tattoos this year. And they're like, oh, right, whatever. And they kept on pushing it off. But then on my sister's 50th birthday, she came down to Long Island for a girls' weekend, and we stuck in there, you know, about an hour at the tattoo parlor, and all three of us got the same tattoo on our ankles. It's a heart, infinity heart, kind of like in an apple, sort of. We have a little stem with a leaf, and mine says NYC on it. But they did it.
It was my freshman year of college. I was really missing home. I was all the way upstate in Fredonia University, and it was my 3rd month in, and I really love the sea turtles and music, so I did a sea turtle with a treble clef in the shell because I wanted to integrate the two things that I really love. The second tattoo that I got is for my grandma. She's Elizabeth Strong is her name, so I got Strong with a monarch butterfly attached to it because butterflies always reminded me of her. She always had butterfly bushes in her garden, and she was actually a barbershopper too. So I wanted that to be on my neck, and also she was a very strong person, and it's a reminder to myself to be strong and that I am strong just like her. Lastly, I got a matching tattoo with my sister. We both love the same books, movies, and one of our favorites is Lord of the Rings. So we got Sisters in Elvish on our wrists. I searched Sisters in Elvish and looked through a bunch of images, and the ones that came up the most was the one that we got tattooed.
So yeah, I basically went along for the ride with my sister and her ex-husband. It was a week after my nephew was born, and he will be 10 this July, so it's almost a decade already that I've had my tattoo. And so my sister and her ex wanted to get something to commemorate the birth of their son. And he is a lawyer, my ex-brother-in-law, and so they had a client that owned this tattoo parlor. So he was going to do their tattoos for them, and they were getting my nephew's initials and his name in Hebrew. So I'm just sitting there, and I'm wasting my time and throwing my thumbs, and I always wanted a tattoo, but I always said that if I was going to put something permanent on my body, that it had to have a lot of meaning for me. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thumbing through the book, and you see fairies and rainbows and stars, and not for me, obviously. But then I came across this Taurus symbol, and it was in purple, and I was like, that's it. It was fate for me. Being the good Jew that I am, I got a tattoo on a Saturday, so, on the Sabbath. So that was, how I came to get that particular tattoo. It is my birth sign. I'm a little stubborn at times. I can flare my nostrils really well. Maybe not so well after, singing all night, but yes. I'm really grounded. I'm very down to earth for the most part, even though I do allow the chorus to bring out my drama side, which is good. But yeah, I always kind of felt drawn to the aspects of earth and that kind of thing. So it was, for me, a perfect fit when I got the tattoo. So I was, and it didn't even hurt, which was like the best part. You know, everybody says that they're scared because sometimes, you know, they get it in places that's very sensitive, and mine was not at all. It was just like somebody doing this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the guy who gave me the tattoo is like, come on, honey, don't you want another one? I'm like, no, one is good. For now, let me just take one.
Well, I got my first and only tattoo right now when I was 17. Tattoos were illegal in South Carolina, which is where I lived. And I knew somebody who did tattoos that was learning. Since then, tattoos are legal in South Carolina now, but at the time they were not. So I knew somebody who was learning how to do tattoos, and I guess I was kind of a guinea pig. It didn't turn out that bad, but it's a small green star on my shoulder. And I kind of got it because I wanted something that I felt like represented my personality and who I am, and, you know, kind of, you know, pulled all that into some kind of imagery. And I've always been into, you know, art and graphics and that kind of stuff. So I was very particular about what I wanted. Green's my favorite color, so obviously I went with green. And I just, you know, I like the celestial imagery, you know, kind of shooting for the stars, dreaming. You know, I was 17 at the time, so I was thinking about, you know, my whole life ahead of me, what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be, and kind of encompasses all of that.
Well, so for my 18th birthday, I wanted to be a little rebellious. I wanted a tattoo. I knew that I wanted it to be something that was meaningful because it was going to stay on my body for the rest of my life, and, you know, the whole, you know, stigma with a tattoo. So I had been singing since I was in first grade in church choir. I sang through school, choruses and all that as well, but I figured, let me attach a music note to Angel Wings so it was a little more angelic, because it was like very opposite of, you know, this tattoo that I was going to put on my body, which was really not a thing my parents would have appreciated. So they didn't know it was happening. My brother is an artist, so I asked him to design it. I thought that might make it even more meaningful. So I asked him if he would sketch up, you know, a picture for me, which he did. So on my 18th birthday, I went with a couple of my girlfriends to the tattoo parlor down the street, and I showed the tattoo artist my picture and said I wanted it on my foot. And he refused to put it on my foot. He said he didn't want his artwork on someone's foot where it might fade and it would become, you know, ugly. And so I said, all right, put it on my back where everyone else gets them. And I left with a tattoo on my back. And still wanted one on my foot. So a few years later, I was studying abroad in London while I was in college and said, I'm gonna go get another one. And I got that one on my foot. So that's just like a random design. I happened to go to this area in London called Camden. It's a very artsy neighborhood, a little sketchy in parts, but I ended up finding a tattoo parlor in the basement of some building, and it was like a one-man show, and he was a really nice guy. I said, I don't really know what I want something on my foot. And he said, all right, I'll come up with some designs. So he filled a whole sheet of, you know, a sheet of tattoos. Mostly, I said, like, maybe a star, something cute. So it's just a star with some squiggles. I have a beauty mark on my foot, so he worked that into the design. I thought that was pretty cool. So I've got the one on my foot and the meaningful one on my back. The one on my back, of course, was like, you know, on a fatty area, so it took a long time, but it didn't hurt as much as the one on my foot. The one on my foot, it only was 5 minutes, but it's all bone, so that one hurt more. Oh, well, I could tell that, you know, I hid the one on my back for a very long time from my father, who would not have approved had I asked him or told him ahead of time. So I think he found it like 3 years later. You know, I happened to like bend over and it popped out, and I got a talking to. So at that point it was too late. I said, but it's an angel wing. It's Angel Wings on a music note, Dad. I'm your angelic musical daughter.
Okay, my first one I got when I was 19. It was a birthday gift from the fella I was dating at the time. It's a turtle, and I chose a turtle because I was the owner of a turtle at the time. Always loved turtles, they're very cute. And so I went to a local tattoo parlor in East Islip, and I showed her a picture. This woman, her name was Lynn. I can't believe I remember that. And I asked if she could, you know, create this particular photograph into a tattoo, except I wanted the turtle to also be holding a flower in its mouth, a daisy. And I wanted etched into the turtle's shell, as if it's part of the turtle's shell, a pentagram. And I chose a pentagram because although it does have some people, a lot of people think that it has negative connotations with Satanism. It really doesn't. It can go back as far as the Greek, what's his name? Pythagoras. He was a philosopher and a mathematician, and he once said that the 5 points of the pentagram each stood for the elements, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, the top point meaning spirit. And I read that once, and it really appealed to me. And really, that's why I like pentagrams so much. It's also just one of those shapes that, you know, when you're doodling, you just do it. Like while you're on the phone or you're, you know, at a lecture, that's not very interesting, you know, or a meeting, you know, and you just do it like, that's just one of those shapes, and that and triangles for me. And so that's why I've always been drawn to the pentagram. And you will see that reflected into 2 of my other tattoos. I've got one at the base of my back. The second one is the one on the base, the big pentagram in the Celtic knotwork style. That's definitely my second one. And so, yeah, so I have the 2 pentagrams that are represented are just different styles of artwork that appeal to me, but the same meaning with the 5 points representing the elements, including spirit. You know, just, it's always appealed to me. And then I've always been drawn to Celtic stuff, especially back then. And the triquetra is it looks like a triangle, you know, with the Celtic knot. And then the triskele is the one that looks like it's got like 3 spirals that are kind of moving, and it's like a circular. Basically, the number 3 has always been one of my favorite numbers, and for no reason other than it's just, you know, why does people have favorite colors or favorite numbers or, you know, drawn to certain cultures? I don't know. But you just do, right? The triquetra, it stands for mind, body, and spirit, although the interpretation based on whatever Celtic tribe you were associated with could mean something different. But when I read that it stood for mind, body, and spirit, I liked that. And then the triskele is, like I said, the circular one with like the spirals in the middle. The 3 spirals, it kind of simulates movement and how certain cycles fuel the other, like life, death, rebirth. Even the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, you know, and it just appealed to me, you know, the whole spiritualness of it, and I'm very drawn to nature.
Before our final interview and big performance by the group, 2 quick things. First, these women have been singing together for years, and when they shared their stories, they learned things about each other that they didn't know, which is great because that's the whole point of this series. And second, when we arrived, we were told one of the ladies had second thoughts about being on camera, so we filmed this segment so that she could do a voiceover and we'd be able to tell her story with her in the background there. But she got in front of the camera, and we're so glad that she did because her story was fantastic.
So I got my first one as a gift to myself for my 50th birthday, and I planned it for a couple of years because I knew I wanted it to represent my family, which is my most proudest achievement of my life. And it took me a while to come around to what the design would be, but I ended up with a heart for everyone. The heart in the middle is for my husband, Steve, and then there's 4 hearts, 1 for each of my kids. And I love it. Every time I look at it, it makes me smile. And my kids are getting older now and starting to move out, and, you know, I always have a little piece of them when I look at. I love it. It's the best. And then about a year later, I knew my mother passed away about 10 years ago. And when she passed, I knew that someday I was going to get a tattoo of her initials in her handwriting. I didn't know when I was going to get it or where I was going to put it, but I knew that eventually I would do that. So about a year after I got this first tattoo, I was away on a weekend with my daughters for a girls' weekend, and they came to me on Saturday evening about dinner time and said, okay, you've been talking about this tattoo about Grandma's initials for a long time. I think it's time we go do it. And by the way, we want to get one in your handwriting, which, how could I ever say no to that? So when the kids were little, I used to write them notes on the counter, like, I'll be back later, and I would sign it with a heart and me, heart me. And that's what they wanted tattooed on them. And I was like, let's go. How fast can we get this done? So we did. We went, they got that. I got my mother's initials, and we had the best time. And my only problem with the one I got of my mother's initials is that I got it on my back of my shoulder. And I was just talking to my daughter Casey about it recently, and I said, I just wish I got it somewhere that I could see it. Like I could see this one and it makes me smile. I forget that it's there. And she said, Mom, it's just like Grandma. You don't have to see her to know that she's there. And plus, she's got your back.